Good evening. Welcome to the September 19th meeting of the Yakima School Board. Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Rice.
Here.
Vice President Villanueva.
Here.
President Walker.
Here.
Director Beckett. And Director Navarro Jr. are excused.
Thank you. And like always, we offer Spanish interpretation services from Jorge with Language Connection. If you need translation assistance in person, please check with Jorge for a device. And Jorge, please translate that information for us.
Para aquellos que necesiten la asistencia de un intérprete, les comento que para eso estoy aquí y tenemos el sistema disponible para hacerlo. Gracias.
Gracias por tu ayuda. We also provide live streaming for the meeting. The link can be found on our webpage under Board of Directors or by going directly to www.ysd7.org/board meetings. I hope you all memorized that. Public comment. If you wish to make a public comment this evening, there are two options available for you. The first option is for commenting on agenda items only, and the second option, which comes toward the end of the meeting, is for all other topics. In order to speak tonight, you will need to sign two forms, a sign-in form and the guidelines form, and please remember the guidelines. If you're interested in watching past meetings, you may find them on our webpage's YSD YouTube channel. Now will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
States and to the one nation, is for all.
And the word of the month for September is respectful, valuing and showing consideration for the feelings, rights, and traditions of others. Okay, in Spanish, respetuoso, valorando y mostrando consideración por los sentimientos, derechos y tradiciones de los demás. And now for the land acknowledgement.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
Hoy las escuelas del Distrito Escolar de Yakima descansan en las tierras ancestrales de las 14 tribus y bandas confederadas de la nación Yakima.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
La gente de la nación Yakima habitó más de 10 billones de acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties.
En los condados de Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Franklin, Kittitas, Klickitat, y Yakima.
Today we honor those native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture.
Hoy honramos a estos pueblos originales que están vinculados en la tierra a través de historias, leyendas y culturas.
We acknowledge the descendants who live in the world today.
Reconocemos a sus descendientes que viven en el mundo de hoy.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Agradezcamos a los guardianes de la tierra, quienes han vivido aquí y continúan viviendo aquí, desde tiempos inmemoriales.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
Un reconocimiento es una manera simple y poderosa de mostrar respeto.
And a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase indigenous peoples' history and culture.
Y un paso hacia la corrección de las historias y prácticas que borran la historia y la cultura de los pueblos indígenas.
It also honors the truth.
También honra la verdad.
As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Como distrito escolar, continuaremos fortaleciendo nuestras relaciones con la nación Yakima.
Thank you to our students. We have a couple of special recognitions this evening. First of all, Graciela Villanueva, Director Villanueva, will be recognizing a group of middle school students who won some awards at the Technology Student Association.
Thank you. As I read your name, if you're here, if you'll come up along this side and we'll shake hands. And then, Kristen, do you want to take some pictures as well? And then stand over here in front of the display and we'll take pictures. Okay. The Board of Directors would like to congratulate the following students for competing at the TSA Nationals competition in Orlando, Florida on June 26th to June 30th. The Technology Student Association's mission is to inspire its student members to prepare for careers in a technology-driven economy and culture. For students from Franklin Middle School, Lewis Nelson, Tegan Barron, Caitlin Cervantes, and Peter Nelson attended the Nationals TSA conference in Orlando, Florida in June. The conference had an estimated 9,000 attendees, including students and advisors from 40 states and 4 countries. Students from Germany, Turkey, South Korea, and American Samoa participated in the competition. For TSA leadership strategies, the team placed 7th. And again, that was Lewis Nelson, Tegan Fairbairn, Caitlin Cervantes, Peter Nelson, all from Franklin Middle School. And we have advisor Jeff McFadden as well. Yep. Yeah, I'll read the second one. Okay. We have another award here for structural engineering. This is first place with a perfect score. And I'll remind the group, this is a national conference with 9,000 attendees with students and advisors from 40 states and 4 countries. First place with a perfect score, again, that's Tegan Fairbairn and Lewis Nelson.
Yeah. In fact, as you get ready, I just wanted to share with the board that every summer, beginning of summer, they leave for a session there at Nationals, and I know that there have been challenges year after year, and I think back to even last year where they were stranded, and I'm not sure how much the board knows about how demoralizing that was at that moment, but to have our teacher here, Mr. McFadden, come back year after year, even in the face of that type of adversity, and not pack it in, and then achieve the the first place and seventh place awards, that the recognition at nationals is just an amazing achievement. So I just want to give a couple of moments to have you say a few words, if you would.
There. Cool. So I took this over right when COVID started. But even starting year one, we at Franklin immediately began bringing home awards, immediately bringing home trophies. We're in year 4. Well, this is year 5. But last year was absolutely terrible. We left Pasco. We got stuck in Denver. We were stuck in the airport for 32 hours straight with 20-some kids, thousands of people stuck in the airport. It was absolutely terrible. But last year was really cool. Some of you guys might remember. We still had a parent who actually drove straight 18 hours. Denver, picked up their kid. 18 hours, drove them all the way to Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah, terrible. But our kids that went there, the Franklin kids, they still brought home 2 first-place trophies last year. So just want to give them a round. Thank you.
It sounds like you're kind of proud of these kids.
That's cool. I love it. Ridiculous. There's always nights.
It's quite an accomplishment. It's quite an accomplishment considering the numbers of teams that you're up against. Thank you for representing us so well.
Thank you. Next up, we have a number of late graduates that graduated from high school over the summer. They, for various things get in the way of people's lives, and they weren't able to quite finish in time, but they finished, and they finished in the summer. And so we'd like to recognize those students with their high school diploma. And Director Rice will honor those students.
Thank you, President Walker. We're very pleased today to be able to honor the following students from Davis High School who persevered and finished, maybe a little late, but they finished getting their credits and got their diploma. We're very, very proud of you. As I call your name, please come up and do the little circle, and then if you would stand over in front of the display, we'll get your photograph. Julius Aguilar Munguia, Emily Corona, Ezequiel Delgado Gonzalez, Alexa Anaí Garcia Morfin, Natasha Allison Ibarra Silva, Monserrat Larumbe Martinez, Congratulations, good job. Emmanuel Lopez, Brian Martinez, congratulations. Did I say your first name correctly? Okay. Fatima Torres Diosdado and Monica Victoria. Please join me in another round of applause for these very successful students.
Okay, here she goes. Thank you. Looks like a lot of those students probably collected their diplomas and they're long gone. But nice to have some come and be recognized. Next up, we'd like to welcome one of the things we noticed, I think they left. If there are any TSA kids with the parents, we'd like to take your picture with a parent if you'd like to get one with your parent as well. Or family. Okay. Okay, next up, we have YEA President, Ms. Frances Guerrero.
How about now? Okay. Good evening. So my report to you today, these are not rhetorical questions. Like, I would actually like written responses if at all possible. So my concern is the lack of planning that seemed to go into the budget cuts. It feels like you just took scissors and cut things and didn't actually plan for the repercussions of them. So for example, with the custodians, the cutting of 20 custodians last year, and there were actually cuts prior to that as well, and then the 12 this year. There's been no plan put in place to my people for how to deal with the lack of custodians. So let me just give you this example. Like, to me, this seems like common sense, and perhaps it's just naivety, but it seemed to me like you wouldn't make this level of cuts without having a plan in place. If my building is 400 square feet, I have 4 custodians covering 100 square feet each. Common sense says that when you take one of those custodians, the 3 left now have 133 square feet each, and there's not going to be a way that they clean at the same level that they did before. So you prioritize. You absolutely have to get the garbages and maybe get some sweeping done, but maybe the blinds don't get dusted, or the counters don't get sanitized, or we're not checking the soap and the paper towels every day. And then you cut more. And so now I'm down to maybe 2.5 custodians still covering the same amount of square footage. Again, that level of cleanliness is not happening. There's no way it can happen. And those custodians have to prioritize what gets done. But there are consequences to that. You can't leave the blinds undusted. People have allergies. People get illnesses from that. You can't just leave the windows unclean. I remember when I started at Ike, we had 1 custodian solely for the windows because there are so many. And now we're lucky if they get cleaned at all. And it's especially bad at the elementary level. Like, I'm telling you right now, and anybody that has kids that age knows, you cannot take your eyes off of them for a second. You cut the para support in my classroom and you cut the custodial work. And now there's messes in there that I can't clean. We're talking like bodily fluids. If a child vomits, has a urine issue, I can't turn my back on them to clean that up. And with the cuts especially happening this year, there isn't even sub coverage. So what happens when there is no custodian available? I really literally want a plan sent out to my people that explains what you do if there's an issue like that in the room and there is no custodian to call. Like, who do I call to clean that up? Because I can't afford to do it myself. And I'm certainly not going to leave it there all day and take care of it after school. I have other things I need to do. Again, when it comes to the square footage that custodians are covering, as a teacher, here's the thing. I get my stack of 30 English papers and I don't get them done by 3 o'clock. Fine, I take them home and I do them at home. Custodian doesn't have that luxury. I don't get my 30 papers done at home. Oh well, looks like my kids have to wait another day before they get feedback. Custodians, it doesn't work that way. You can't wait another day for that thing to be cleaned. And let me tell you the real horror of the thing that keeps me up at night, because it's literally happened to me when Ike opened. We're going to start having problems with ants and cockroaches and silverfish and godforsaken rodents at some point if we are not doing a better job of cleaning. Like, that's just facts. I remember when we moved into Ike, cockroaches, I think, got imported on like the new boxes of stuff. I'm a tough girl. I grew up fishing and camping and handling guns. Snakes came at me and Dad was sitting there shooting them. I am not afraid of things. But when I had cockroaches in my classroom, I kid you not, the psychological horror of that was debilitating. The idea that I might bring those home or ants, seeing ants. For the record, I have forbidden my office manager to ever have chips in our office again because ants got into chips in our office. Do you know what that feels like? To have that in your vicinity? To have that in children's vicinity? It's not okay. And I don't see any plan in place to deal with any of this, especially again at the elementary level where they have to deal with breakfast after the bell. And teachers have to help those students open up all their food, fruit cups. If anybody has ever had to open one of those fruit cups, like it's impossible to do it without spilling. You have to set up napkins and paper towels and then slowly peel it apart. And by God, by the time you're done with all your students opening their fruit cups, there's a mess everywhere. Not to mention the spills that they just naturally make because they're little. And they don't have time to clean it up. If we made all of our kids clean up their own messes, it would steal so much teaching and learning time. It just does. And at the high school level, the middle school level, same thing there. Like, I can't leave messes and let them stay because the bug thing is still going to be an issue. So what is the plan? What is the contingency that should be going out to my people so that they know how to deal with those things? And speaking of plans, the librarian situation. You cut para support to the librarians, but did you have a plan in place to account for, and please pay attention because I'm going to file grievances on this. I've let it run for this first month while we're scrambling to figure out how we're doing, but scrambling should be done. Every one of my members gets 270 plan minutes a week. So what is the plan for covering the library when my member is taking their hour of plan? When they take their 30-minute duty-free lunch, who is covering the library? And bathroom breaks? Who's covering the library? There should be a written plan in place explaining all of this. And when they're gone, it's not like a teacher. You can call in any sub off the street and a sub can read those lesson plans and make it happen. But for a librarian, you can't call in any sub off the street. They don't know how that checkout system works. They don't know how to run the technology that kids are using in the library. You can't just call anyone in. If my librarian gets COVID and they're out for a week, what's the plan? Are we just shutting down the library? Because I've heard that's what's happening right now. We should not be taking those resources from students. Again, it feels like cuts were made without any contingency plan in place for how you were going to cover for those. I think last week, transportation made it really clear when all those people spoke out on behalf of Jenna Bauer. Like, you cannot just cut that position without having some kind of plan in place. Who's going to do that work now? That position was created in the first place because it was too much for someone else to do as an ancillary part of their job. And she was learning a new system and getting it down pat, and we've already invested money in it. And what was the plan for dealing with the loss of the person running that system? Like, I don't think transportation has heard it. The resources to our students, the loss of those resources. I know you've already seen the repercussions of that, the consequences of that in terms of parents. And I pointed that out the last school board meeting, that parents are not going to want to stay in a district that doesn't offer their kids the same resources as other districts. And they're really not going to want to stay if their kids start coming home sick all the time because the area is not as clean as it should be. They're not going to want to stay in a place that doesn't have enough supervision for them, again, in terms of the loss of paras. And they're not going to want to stay when teachers are stressed and frazzled and overwhelmed by the increased workload trying to cover for other things that used to be covered. It seems easy to just cut academic specialists. We didn't have them before. We can survive without them now. Okay, but what was the plan for compensating for the services that they provided before? Like, I would really like to see that in writing. I'd like you to understand that you can't just cut a position without having something in place to compensate for that, so that our people feel a little more security about what they're supposed to do now with the loss of whatever. And in some cases, like the custodians and the paras, I just don't think you can compensate for that loss. What they provide for us and for our students, you just can't compensate without actual bodies filling those positions. Thank you.
Franny, I have a question for you. Have you noticed a reduction in cleanliness since the announcement was made to reduce a month ago of custodians?
Yeah, you're gonna hear someone else speak to that in a second.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful, thank you. I'll go ahead and you can go ahead and have a seat. I'll just respond to some of those comments that Franny shared, because I think what's concerning is that we have not actually released the custodians yet. So the custodians are still there serving. So it is concerning that there's a noted deficiency this year so far after the notification. As far as the many things that were brought up by Franny, I do think some of that warrants just an explanation here. One is that I do meet with Franny every month, and I know that we have labor management meetings with our HR department, and none of these topics have been brought up so far. So I think that those conversations taking place preliminary to find out if there is a plan is certainly warranted, because there is a plan, and things aren't done just thrown out there as people would have you believe. I would invite Franny to join me to see breakfast after the bell, because opening fruit cups is not that difficult, and our teachers do an exceptional job of serving our students in their classrooms. I've been in many of those classrooms, and it does go off very well, and it's a wonderful way to make sure that our students are fed, that they're ready to learn, and we're very proud of the opportunity to serve meals to our students, and proud of that state program in which we involve ourselves. As far as librarians, we do have librarians all over the state that are singletons in their districts. So when you're talking about cutting resources and having less than other districts, we actually have more than other districts. And when we do reduce those supports, like a secretary, we're coming more in line with other districts across the state. I know this because my wife serves as a librarian both on the west side, Todd Beamer High School, and we were on the west side, and currently at East Valley here in our valley. So she's the single librarian in those locations. And when she goes to the bathroom, she goes to the bathroom and she just closes the door. And when she needs a break, they do close the library, and that happens all over the state. So those are things that are happening, and they're not as there's an alarmist feel to what's being shared. And I'm just sharing with you that we are addressing those issues. So I'm more than happy to engage in continued conversation with Franny, or initial conversation about what does happen. But I also want to turn some time over to our Assistant Superintendent of HR and Operations to share his perspective on some of the things that were surfaced.
So before we get into great detail about what can or cannot happen, we have a union contract that has to do with replacements and bidding and forced transfers. And so our team has sat down and created what that plan is. We have posted a couple of positions, but at the exact same time, they have to sit down with their union leadership, which we will be doing next week, to roll out what that plan is with them, ask for them to review it. And if they see an area which needs to be revamped, then we will take that into consideration and make those adjustments. Currently, based on the existing plan, there will be no reductions of the day custodial group. So when we're talking about breakfast after the bell, it's the exact same staff that is there today. Where you will see the reductions will happen in the evening. The backup plan to that is also in the event that there are losses or something that comes up. What I do is I have a spreadsheet that has to do with every hour and every step that a person is in, and I calculate and I track on a monthly basis whether I'm hitting my target or not. When somebody goes out on either a leave of absence or somebody goes out on an injury where we do not have billable hours, I track those, and then I use that as my cushion for when we have these type of situations to go up to offer overtime so that I can meet budget. Because at the end of the year, we end up having to utilize the services that we get paid for from the state. So I'm not going to roll out or have Geraldo Rivera, our program manager in charge of custodial services, roll that plan out here until it's been rolled out with their labor management group. So again, no reductions of services during the day. And yes, there will be some reductions of services in the evening. And quite frankly, even dropping down to the number that we are at now, or where that we will be on November 1st, will be the same number that we inherited when we came in. The only difference is we used to use subs and now we use regular FTE as the unassigned, so that we have people who know all of our processes and procedures and are familiar with the buildings. So, and we also have 1,500 less students. So there are plans that are in place, and I will share them with the group when it is appropriate. We also have, once we roll this out with our labor partners, then from there we will roll it out to the buildings so that the building principals will all know what the adjustments will be. And then at that point in time, we will roll it out district-wide. But there's a process that I'm going to follow, and I'm not going to deviate from that at this moment. So I hope that rough summary gives you an idea that there has been much thought and process put to it, and that there should be no reduction of services during the day when the students are present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And normally we don't respond to comments at the meeting, but I have one question. I've heard numerous times in the meeting invitations to Ms. Guerrero and to Steve McKenna, who's presented to us frequently. And there were open invitations to meet with the superintendent and with Mr. Cooper to ask detailed questions about the budget. Has Ms. Guerrero or Mr. McKenna ever taken advantage of that opportunity to discuss the budget?
I have met with Ms. Guerrero to address topics that do relate to the budget. I have not met with Mr. McKenna, so that offer has gone unheeded.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Members of the board updates. I'd like to share one. One of the reasons that this meeting is on Thursday this week instead of Tuesday is there was a mandatory training for school board members. It's a statewide training, and we had to change because it's only offered certain times and it's online. And so we had a full complement of the board take the training regarding Native American students and programs for Native American students and Indigenous history. And so there were a lot of interesting details in that program. I found it to be very valuable. And also a couple of things that I came away from is I think it's probably safe to say we're under-identifying the number of students, and that's part of that's in the way the law is structured. And we need to look at making sure that we identify all those students. I know that with this district, we've done some work in relationship with the Yakima tribe. I see Mariah sitting in the audience. We've worked closely with Mariah for years on providing supports to our Native American students. And so, but whatever we do, we can always do better. So I'm hoping that as a board, we will take advantage of some of the things we learned in that training and continue to improve our relationship with the tribe and with our Native American students and families. Any other updates from the board?
General Assembly starts tomorrow. It's all day tomorrow and all day Saturday till we're done. And board members have the option of participating virtually or in person, and I've chosen to participate virtually, so I will be Zooming for 2 days. And hope that by our next board meeting, I'll have an update from the results of the prioritization, which will take place after the assembly, probably that next week that will start.
Thank you. For those of you in the audience who don't know what General Assembly is, there's an organization called the Washington State School Directors Association. It's like the professional organization for school board members. And so General Assembly determines two things. We determine our standing positions, which are our operating beliefs and core beliefs of the organization. And the other part that takes a lot more work than the standing beliefs or resolutions is the legislative work. And so the organization establishes legislative priorities, and boards from all over the state can participate and vote on those legislative priorities. And every board member is a member of that organization. So that's what the General Assembly is. Ed, come on, okay. Garcia, do you have anything to report? Okay. Moving on, we have our superintendent's update.
Thank you so much. A couple of great announcements. Well, number one, we have, if you're here, please stand. Dr. Maria Lucero, Hector Mendez, Jamie Lee, Joel Brumley, and Ilda Parra. If they are here, please stand just where you're at. Wonderful. The three of you that are here, thank you. Four of you, thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the work that you did in conjunction with Ilda Parra to make sure that we had our 2024-25 minimum basic education requirement collection submitted, and that has now been completed, meeting a requirement that was necessary. So thank you so much. You can have a seat now, but I know that you have positions that pull you out full time in other areas, and then on top of that, the reports that are necessary for compliance are often a pretty hefty lift. So thank you for that. Also, a wonderful celebration. We had an OSPI media release. I don't know if we have Erica Aparicio here. Erica, are you here? She is not, but we will be able to share a photo. We have taken a photo with her that we can get to you. And she is one of our 8 2024 State Classified School Employee of the Year finalists. And she works in our health center. We're so proud of her work and what she brings to serving the students here in the Yakima School District. So I wanted to call that out as well. So we have a wonderful finalist for the Employee of the Year in the classified area. And then the last item that I'll share with you briefly, and I only have for one school at this point, so I need to return and get you some more information. So this is hot off the press, which is just some information around dual credits. About 4 years ago, I started working very closely with our high school principals on how to augment the dual credit opportunities for our students, because we know that every student that takes a college course in the high school can do so at a free rate, which is a great advantage to families, especially in poverty. And we know that when there are challenging times, we tend to focus on the challenges, but there are wonderful things that continue to happen in our district because of the wonderful personnel that we do have in place, both in the educators that we have and our leadership at the building level. And to call out an example of this, in 2019 and 20, so this is at Eisenhower currently, at Eisenhower, and again, I'll return with the Davis numbers, we had 101 students that were taking a dual language class. So they were taking a course in dual language and a college credit. So of those 101 students, they were actually taking 122 classes. So some of those students were taking more than one class. So again, this was 2019, 2020, and the number was right at 101.
Just to clarify, a dual language class or dual credit?
I'm sorry, did I say dual language? I'm in error. Thank you so much for calling that out. Yes, dual credit. I called that out wrong. So yes, dual credit, the college and the high school, courses in the college and the high school. So yes, dual credit. And so we had 101 dual credit classes. And then if you fast forward to 2024-25, remember that number was 101. We now have 1,124 students taking a dual credit, one or more dual credit courses, and the number of seats or the number of classes that are being taken at Eisenhower have reached a level of 2,039 students. So if I do a conservative, which I'm sure is well below what the cost would be for credit, I would have to check with our local university north of here. But if I just put a standard classroom fee at $50, which is, I'm sure, well below what it would be, then that number would equate to $101,950. So if it's 200, then that would be quadruple the number and on and on. So I don't have an exact count for the cost of savings for our families, but it's substantial, and that number continues to grow. So we're very excited about the growth that we've seen and the data that was presented to me from Principal Diner, and we'll get that from Principal Hasty and share that as soon as we have that information. So that's a wonderful celebration. Any questions?
Just approximately $234 a credit at Central,
There you go.
just in case you're curious.
So then what's the total?
I don't know. I was looking at the dollar amount. I don't know how many credits you said.
Yeah.
1,000.
I think it'd be more.
So
Yeah.
$234 a credit currently.
There we go. Thank you.
Any other updates, Dr. Green?
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a significant savings for our families. Next up, we have calendar updates. Kirsten, you're here to lead us through the calendar.
Good evening, school board. Well, we do have a lot of athletic events, 12 home games in September, so I encourage people to look online for those. You can also go to the websites for Ike and Davis, and there are direct links to their full schedules, so you can catch away games as well. The event that I wanted to bring the community's attention to tonight is that there will be Yakima School District representation at the Central Washington State Fair. The fair opens tomorrow, and we will be there in a CTE capacity for our college and career readiness, as well as also a booth that will acknowledge our virtual schools and our open enrollment. So we are excited to have that as well, and those will be in the STEM building. So we encourage all to visit.
Thank you. And do our students still participate in the art, student art?
Yes, they do.
At the
It's one of
fair
my
as well.
personal favorite things to go watch that. So
Any other calendar additions or notations or the board? Okay, thank you, Kirsten. Next up, we are open for comments from the public on agenda items. I see Barb is back getting the sign-in sheet. So it turns out that all the comments are non-agenda items, so they will come after. There's a couple of approvals that it really won't take very long. So there are a couple of approvals we have to do, and then we'll arrive at the comment portion. So next up on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. And the items on the consent agenda are minutes, approval of warrants for August 2024, approval of personnel actions, and approval of out of endorsement assignments for the 24-25 school year. Is there any consent agenda item that you would like to see removed for further discussion? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion or question? Okay, Barb, call the roll, please.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Next up, we have formal approval of the Yakima Association of Paraeducators Agreement. Mr. Murrieta will present that. I believe it's a 2-year agreement. I did have an opportunity to read the agreement in detail, so it looks good to me, but we'll let the rest of the board decide. I'm sure they got a chance to read it. Thank you.
So today's requested action is the approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the Yakima Association of Paraeducators and Yakima School District. This aligns with a strategic plan goal number 2. The salary for the 23-24 school year will see an increase of $559,184.01 effective the 2024-2025 school year, or that's already come into place. The adjustment for the following year will be by the IPD will be subject to the determination of the legislature. The bargaining with the Yakima Association of Paraeducators has been completed, resulting in a 2-year agreement that would include 2024 through 2026. The increase for year one was IPD, which was 3.7 plus 0.5%. And the increase to the second year would be IPD or 3%, whichever is greater. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Yakima Association of Paraeducators, Tiffany Moritz, Christine Lewis, Janelle Engelhardt, Maria De Leon, Renee Lackey, and WEA representatives Janet Beck and Alan Simmons. Bargaining for the district was also Olivia Martinez, Chris Miller, and Hilda Para. Do you have any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer any.
Any questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the agreement between the Yakima Association of Paraeducators and the Yakima School District as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Association of Paraeducators agreement. Any further opportunity for question or comment? Okay, Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Next up, we have Resolution 0.1.24.25, the tax anticipation note. And I believe this is an annual occurrence.
It is not.
It's not annual. It's a new.
Correct. So before you this evening, let me take you through what is before you. So there's an understanding by you because you're going to take an action on the financing. So I want to ensure that the board is clear on what you're going to vote on. Early in our budget process, or in the August timeframe, I brought before the board of directors the apportionment advancement resolution. So what before you today is a different financing tool that provides us a little more flexibility and liquidity, and I'll talk you through what is the intention of the tax anticipation, also known as the TAN. So in August, the apportionment advancement, we asked for authority for that. We have requested that because we have negative projected cash flow in the month of September, as we discussed and have modeled out, and also potentially in the month of June. Currently, the apportionment advancement is not available for the month of September. You recall, it's only through the months of October, and then you have to make repayment again in the fall until July or August. So even though the apportionment advancement is a tool that many districts are using at the moment, and Superintendent Green and I were at a meeting today where liquidity and financing was the topic of the day for districts all around the state. And this is one tool that's left because we have discussed before that historically county treasurers, when districts get into a cash position where they don't have sufficient cash month to month, what would happen, and has been in their statute for 70 or 80 years, as I understand it, is the concept of registered warrants. So if you write a check, in this case, it's called a warrant for a reason because it actually can bear interest and the bank can hold it, and then they would cash it when you have sufficient funds available. So that's why when you hear about the term warrant versus check, there is legitimately a financial reason and why we call it a warrant versus a check. A warrant is an interest-bearing instrument, not unlike a check that does not bear interest when you issue it. So that tool has been taken away by a lot of county treasurers. So if you look at Marysville and Moses Lake, Marysville is an example where they have liquidity issues. They've been in the news. It has been reported to us that like the Snohomish County Treasurer is not offering them any short-term financing or cash. This is happening all around the state. So we are left, CFOs are left with hardly any tools in the toolbox. We have what is before you tonight, which is an anticipation note. I have done these anticipation notes for bonds, which is called a BAN, really unique name, bond anticipation note, which means you're borrowing in advance of the revenue that you're going to receive from a bond. A RAN, a revenue anticipation note, which is exactly what it sounds like. You are anticipating a revenue and you're going to borrow against that future stream. And then what was before you this evening, which is called a TAN, which is a tax anticipation note. Now a TAN, in this case, we are able to borrow and use a TAN because our levy grew from approximately 16 to 21 million, or close to a $5 million increase over a calendar year period. That allows us to basically securitize that revenue stream and borrow against it. So that is what we're going to do or propose before you today. Now, you may say, why are you borrowing money, Mr. Cooper? We have liquidity issues. Well, here's why. The instrument before you this evening is approximately $4.5 million. It's a 15-month note, so it's going to see us through on a cash flow basis for 2 fiscal Septembers, right? Start the year this September we're in, and then next September. It has a total interest cost, a TIC of $265,000 over a 15-month period. We are likely, and our goal is to invest as much of that idle cash as possible, because there are months where we do not need the full $4 million, and the reality is we're going to be a couple million above that, but we need some buffer just because of the size of our organization. So we'll reinvest those proceeds, and our model suggests that our total interest cost will be around $175,000 to $200,000 once we net out our interest earnings from holding the idle cash. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is, for $175,000 to $200,000, we'll have assurance of our liquidity over the next 15-month period. So the goal is then to take this money in. This transaction is set to close the 25th of September, and obviously on purpose, because that is 5 days before payroll. Right? So in order to make payroll, we need to borrow these funds. And then what we will do is, as the fund balance grows and our cash position increases, we will then, in December of 25, which is the end of the note, we will then repay those funds out of fund balance and move forward. So this is strictly a liquidity and cash flow financing, and I believe it's the best thing we can do right now to ensure that we have sufficient cash to pay the bills as we rebuild our fund balance. This is one of the few tools we have left, if not one of the only ones. And so I'm going to run down the numbers real quick, because I always like to do this anytime a board's taking action on a financing. So the resolution before you was prepared by K&L Gates on our bond counsel, Cynthia Weed. And then the financing, of course, is with Capital One, and they've been local bankers we've been dealing with. So I'm going to go over the note again. Principal amount of $4,527,000. Again, it will take us through 2 Septembers, which is where our low cash flow historically is. A rate of 4.64%. A maturity of 12/30/25, so December 30th of 25. The note, that's a 15-month term. It's technically callable or payable in a year. So if we wanted to pay it early, we could do so after a full year of maturity. And then, as I talked about, the total interest cost, once you net out interest earning, our potential investment earnings would be about $175,000 to $200,000 for the note. So my team, and this is one of the first TANs done in a lengthy time period, in quite a bit of time period. I talked to our banker and our bond counsel. It has occurred and will occur in a few other school districts, and it is likely to be a tool that districts are going to have to use given the change in apportionment and obviously inflation. So that's before you this evening. Obviously, the CFO recommends you do pass that, so we have sufficient liquidity. And then, of course, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have on the short-term note as it's presented to you this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, do we have a sense of when we have to pay this back? And you said December of 25 out of the fund balance, and this is all projections, and so a projection's a projection, but do we have a sense of what the fund balance would be after that?
December 30th of 25?
Yeah.
At that point in time, we hope to be the fund balance between 15 and 20 million. So that's 18 months out from now, and close of this fiscal year, and then we'd have reductions potentially or additional revenue going into fiscal year 25, 26. So
after we pay the bill, you're saying we'd have about 50 million in the fund balance? Again,
yes,
projections,
currently,
I understand
yes.
that.
That's a long crystal ball out there, but yes.
Okay.
We will have sufficient cash and liquidity to repay the note.
Okay.
Because our goal is to not rely on the financing. I know that sounds kind of odd, but we are using it as a buffer and hopefully only go into it as needed in our low cash flow months and invest the proceeds otherwise.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve Resolution 01.24.25, Tax Anticipation Note 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 0.01.24.25. Any further discussion or question? Barb, call the roll, please.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva.
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. We have now arrived at the second opportunity for comments from the public. So first up to present would be Jenna Bowers regarding the RIF.
Hello, everybody. So I want to first introduce myself. I'm Jenna Bowers. I am an Eisenhower graduate. I have 2 students that I've attended all through Yakima School District. I am currently an employee of the Yakima School District in the Transportation Department. I have also been affected by the most recent rift. So I want to acknowledge the difficulty that these decisions have been for you guys, and know that you are making very hard and difficult choices. So I just want to start with acknowledging that I know that this isn't easy for you guys, as it's not easy for anybody else that's having to go through this. So, however, I urge you guys to reconsider the removal of the Gen Ed and Trip Supervisor position in the Transportation Department. This decision poses significant risk that will negatively impact our operations and student safety. Without this key role, the workload will shift back to our directors, who are already overwhelmed with their current responsibilities. These will lead to outdated bus routes, increasing the chances that students may not be picked up at their stops, that they may end up on incorrect routes, or children may be lost because we don't know where they're at. Accurate student lists are vital for the efficiency of transportation, as well as the reimbursement when it comes to getting paid from the state for those students. In June of 2023, we transitioned to a new Traversa advanced trip system, which is a much more complicated and in-depth program than what we were originally using. The removal of the trip supervisor is particularly concerning to me, because the directors have had very basic training in this program, as the duties fall mainly on the trip supervisor, and they're not sure how to really run this program effectively. So the removal of this position will cause a delay in the processing of trip requests, increased risk of trips being missed, as well as the complicated billing issues, such as all of the trips that are routed through or billed through grant-funded trips. They have a certain deadline that they need to be turned into, and it's just going to delay that process of having to wait for one of our administrators to have to do all the billing for these trips. So, eliminating the point of contact for the routing and trip inquiries will create a significant delay at the school level as well, involving our office managers, the registrars, the athletic directors, and the coaches. They will face an extended wait time to get their answers to their questions. Often this will take several days, as the people now will be our administrators, and they're already so behind on their normal duties that they don't have the time to take and answer trip questions. This additional strain could hinder the ability to support students and staff effectively. Over 60 of our drivers have signed a petition that was hand-delivered to Superintendent Dr. Green on September 3rd, along with numerous emails being sent to Superintendent Dr. Green.
Jenna, pardon the interruption, but
Yes.
you have overshot your time limit. There are a number of people that want to present this evening.
All right.
So
Thank you guys very much.
And thank you for the work that you do. I've heard many compliments on the work that you've done
All
on
right.
behalf of transportation. So I want you to know we're aware of that.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kim Olson, also addressing transportation. No.
Good evening. I'm Kim Olson. I'm the shop steward for Teamsters at Transportation. I'm here to help address again for Jenna Bowers. What I wanted to do is educate you a little bit. The Yakima School District purchased a technology program from Tyler Technologies. As she said, it's very advanced. There's over 2,500 school districts in Canada and the United States using this. Right now we have 68 tablets, board tablets that the drivers take with them. It will, when programmed correctly, it will give turn-by-turn directions. When not properly programmed, it's a nightmare because it'll take you down the smallest roads you can imagine. For parents, there are some things that we actually step back. There's a lot of programs and things in this app that we're not using. One of them is for parents. It's a communication app. And they can log into it when we do get it online, and they can look for the bus and see where the stop is. That would definitely reduce the number of calls and the people that are taking the calls. That's time and money. For administration, it has telematic GPS. It tracks mileage and route time of each route. It also does work orders, inspections, you can take pictures of defects on the bus. It can monitor the engine and provide data for everyone involved. Right now, the Gen Ed is not fully utilizing the Transversa. It can track students if used as they get on and get off. We would know where they went when they got off. It would also utilize the technology and not use people again. Traverse is only doing basic things, but it can do so much more. Right now, we're in the cusp of utilizing the software, but there's so much more we can learn to do. Jenna's goal for this year is to educate school staff, coaches, and anyone staff that deals with our students, buses, trips, or anything else. It won't have to be touched 2 times. It won't have to be taken off of Skyward and put into Traverse. It would go directly into there. If Jenna Bowers is ripped, I don't know who would do that, because that's her plan for this coming year. And she has the aptitude and goal to do that, and she can do that. I have my full trust in her. She's an excellent person, and she's great at her job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Steve McKenna regarding financial calamity.
I'm Steve McKenna. That's your official thing that you passed, that we're in a financial calamity. And of course, many of the things that we're talking about tonight obviously show that there is a financial calamity. I don't recall any offer from Mr. Green to talk. I did talk to Mr. Cooper twice, who told me he would contact me, but I'm still waiting. But anyway, I saw the Seattle Times guest article about school finances that the board president, Mr. Walker, signed off on. The victimhood needs to stop. Schools like Marysville failed 2 levies. Several schools that have been brought up are schools that failed levies. Schools that did not fail levies have not riffed a lot of people, like Yakima. I find it appalling that the management team and the school board did not see this financial calamity that was telegraphed for 5 years in a row of declining enrollment. 5 years with 1,236 fewer students, but I hear now it's up to 1,500 and some. With a loss of over $14 million, that's just in 1 year. And the hiring of 220 additional staff increased the payroll by roughly $20 million. That's what caused the financial calamity. It is also appalling that there's no sense of remorse or apology from the superintendent and the board to the community, only excuses for this preventable financial debacle. This financial calamity is frustrating for students when they do not receive the services or classes that they deserve. This financial calamity is frustrating for the classified people that are to be laid off in October when the district central office is staffed above the state allocation for administrators, and the management team ignored the declining enrollment until it was too late, causing rifts and layoffs. This financial calamity is frustrating to teachers that have to teach outside their areas of expertise or are forced to get additional certification. This financial calamity is frustrating when the superintendent's office spends more per pupil on their functions than any school district in the state. and I sent you a copy of that information from OSPI. It is frustrating that the Yakima School District's superintendent contract is for 218 days when the vast majority of superintendents in the county and the state that are full FTE work 260-day contracts. There is a reason many lottery winners are broke: financial mismanagement. The superintendent and cabinet spent the one-time federal dollars like the district had won the lottery. The rubber stamp of policy governance is not working. Pretending that everything is fine, but it does not allow this to happen. Cuts need to be made in the central office where the problem originated. And now we're resorting to TANs, so we'll have enough money for payroll. Wow, amazing. Thank you.
Next up, we have Richard Evans, also from Transportation.
To Yakima School District Board of Directors and Dr. Trevor Green. My name is Richard Evans. I'm a bus driver for the Yakima School District. I've been employed with the district for 22 years. On September 14th, 2024, I transported a sports team to Hermiston, Oregon. After arriving back in Yakima that evening, I filed a travel claim for reimbursement of my meals. On the travel claim form, it has per diem rates for in and out of state. Per what was instructed in the form, I filled out the portion for out-of-state rates since the destination was in the state of Oregon. On Tuesday, September 17th, I was given notice by Transportation Management that my out-of-state claim was denied because I had to be 20 miles or farther from the Washington state line. According to management, this has been a policy for years. None of my other colleagues and certain other YSD employees have ever heard of this. My issues and questions are, if this policy has been around for many years, why weren't I and other drivers notified of this in the past? Why isn't this policy listed on the travel claim form that I have here in my hand? Which was updated on January 4th of this year. Others and I have traveled to many destinations in Idaho and Oregon that fall within the 20 miles of Washington state line, and we have always been paid for out-of-state rates. Also, when was this policy regarding out-of-state rates enacted? It wasn't that long ago. I was asked by a member of management to make sure that I claimed an out-of-state reimbursement for an out-of-state trip that I took, which did not exceed the 20 miles from the Washington state line. Other colleagues and I believe that if you travel beyond the state line, we should be paid for out-of-state rates no matter how far or close to the Washington state line we are. Thank you.
Richard,
thank you.
So this is the first time that you brought it to my attention. I will correct it.
Okay.
I'll meet with you and we will get this thing taken care of.
All right.
I'm sorry that it took you having to come here before it got to me.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Richard. Thank you.
Next up, we have Justin Nicholas. No, I need to check a protocol here. Justin is down twice. Do our protocols allow two different comments at the same meeting, even though they're on two different topics?
You asking me?
No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I don't have the guideline form in front of me. I don't have the guidelines in front of me.
I think this board's prerogative whether you want to allow for two comments or consolidate into one. I don't think there's anything in writing on that.
Okay.
It's a board's prerogative.
So I guess you get 6 minutes. You have two topics.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. My name is Justin Nicholas. I'm a teacher at Washington Middle School, and I'll be reading for a staff member who is ill tonight and could not be here. My name is...
Excuse me. We do have a policy on that I know of for sure. You cannot read for someone else. They need to present themselves. We do not. We've had some people violate that procedure before, but that is not appropriate. They have to present themselves. You cannot read for someone else.
You're welcome to leave it.
You're welcome to leave a written statement from someone else. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll move into my second 3-minute block then.
Okay.
I think that the comments from Trevor towards Franny were a little inappropriate. When someone loses their job, i.e. the 12 custodians this year, It is disruptive to their life. And I think expecting the same level of work out of them is not appropriate, right? So when you're talking about those people like they should be reprimanded or anything should happen to them, they're going through a really difficult life experience that you will probably find yourself in the next year or two. So I think having a little bit of patience and remorse for them is really important. And that's my second block. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have Jeff DeWitt from YEA.
Good evening. I'm Duff DeWitt, YEA, bargaining chair, also Eisenhower High School teacher, parent of 3 Yakima School District children, and live in the Yakima School District. I'm going to comment tonight on what feels like a continuing pattern of dismissiveness, disrespectful conduct back toward our union president as she presents concerns from members. She represents over 1,000 people. That's her job, is to come up here and talk for those who either can't speak for themselves or don't feel comfortable doing so. The concerns that she presents are legitimate concerns. They're concerns that people have on the daily. This is far and away the lowest morale that I've felt in my entire 17-year career in the Yakima School District from my colleagues and coworkers, based on not only the rift that happened in the spring, but the way that the budget cuts are affecting what we do on the daily basis. In response to the general feeling that Franny brought up about cuts kind of coming here and there without much plan, that is exactly how it feels as we move forward, just as the gentleman who got his issue dealt with tonight by speaking on a mic about it. It is as though our CBAs are being fine-tooth combed to find $1 here and $1 there, and every time it takes place, it is affecting members in more than just being told no. It is affecting members in time, stress, and work outside of their contracted day in order to make sure that they are getting their contracted rights met the way that the CBA intends, and not as a way to save a few bucks here and there for the school district. And just as Mr. McKenna had talked about, this is an issue that's been going on for years. This should not have been a challenging thing to discern over time, that as enrollment falls and our budget increases, we are going to have a deficit. And here we are. And yet we are told over and over again that this is happening all over the state, and this is something that is just we're dealing with, and you guys know best. If you knew the answers and knew best, we wouldn't be here in the first place. When we trust our leaders to lead, we trust our leaders to do what is right for not only for us, but for our students. But it always seems to hurt us in our classroom. It doesn't ever seem to hurt those that are above us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Debbie Blodgett regarding social studies curriculum.
Hi, I'm Debbie Blodgett-Gons. My children graduated from Yakima School District. I have a granddaughter in Yakima School District right now attending Roosevelt School, and I'm an elementary school teacher at Roosevelt. I'm back to readdress the issue about social studies in the CKLA curriculum that I brought to your attention in June. We've started another year, and still we don't have social studies on our schedule. It's not on our schedule. We feel like we're cheating because we're combining social studies and science. Science is on our schedule, but we don't have any social studies. And when I addressed it within our building, they said I needed to address you folks. I needed to address the directors because it's a district decision. So I'm here to say again, we don't have social studies. We used to be able to squeeze social studies in using Reading Wonders because it was open enough. But now I shared with you at our last board meeting that I presented at that our new curriculum just doesn't align with our Washington state standards. And I was happy when I walked in and I heard Norm hearing about the Native American. I'm an enrolled member of the Yakima Nation, very proud to be a Native American, very proud that we are living in the ceded area of the Yakima Nation, and I think our children deserve to know that. I think our children deserve to learn that they live in Washington state, and yet half of my class didn't know the state with which they reside in. That bothers me. We need to have social studies. We have ideas about how to incorporate social studies, but with the current reading curriculum, we aren't able to. Additionally, I had some moral concerns about the reading curriculum, having some issues that are just not appropriate to address with 9 and 10-year-olds, and here we are. In the middle of it again, I addressed this issue to my building administration last October, who directed me to district level administration. I directed those concerns to the current district leaders, who told me implement it the way it is, told my grade level team implement it the way it is. We went to YEA, asked for assistance. YEA drafted a letter with concerns, well laid out, a lot of concerns. We gathered information from a lot of our members, and none of those issues have been addressed. So I'm back to say, I haven't heard of any issues. We're still dealing with the calendar that doesn't address social studies, and we're still dealing with the curriculum that doesn't allow us to incorporate social studies. Social studies is very important, as Norm indicated. We're all social human beings, and our children deserve to be getting some social studies instruction at the elementary level. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments for the evening. I believe there's a need for executive session, about 30 minutes. Is that correct? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. We moved him to the bottom. Francis, how could I forget Francis? At his request, but it was at the beginning.
Thank you for the time. 2 weeks ago, some of my fellow workers, they shared and talked about some of the budget things, which I felt were appropriate tonight. Talked about some of the complexities of what it takes to get a student pitch dark into a bus from their place of waiting to go to school and back. But anyway, I just want to give you a little picture, maybe be your eyes, maybe not ears, but eyes, as far as what I have seen over the last 30 years, 30 plus years actually, that I've had the opportunity to be transporting the school's kids. And I wrote a letter, I'll just stick to it. My name is Francis McSherry, a proud 1973 graduate of A.C. Davis High School. My 2 youngest children are Davis High graduates of 1994-95, the youngest of which at one time called one of you coach. She asked me to say hello. This evening is the second time I have spoken at a board meeting. The first time via Zoom was in the midst of the terrible coronavirus outbreak. John Puccinelli and I asked to address the board with our most sincere and deepest gratitude. You chose to extend our employment through those most difficult months, and our appreciation today has not wavered. But this evening I come to you with a very heavy heart. In my 30 plus years of transportation, I have not a more difficult 2 weeks. Time would fail me to express to you the challenges that we faced over transporting the tens of thousands of students to and from school over the years. What happened 2 weeks ago today? I was informed that the key position and cornerstone of our department was eliminated. That key position has a job title, and that cornerstone has a name, and her name is Jenna Bowers. In these 30 years, I want to emphasize this, there has never been a hire in our department that has added so much value to everything we do. This has not been a popularity contest. That 60 people that signed that letter 2 weeks ago, we had to actually go find it. It took me, it wasn't like, out in front of everybody. If someone wanted to sign it, they were going to sign it. We have quite a variety of people that work there, and they're not going to sign something unless they believe in it. Excuse me for just running over a moment. I'll just start here. The current administration, 3 years ago, the morale in our department was near its lowest. The current administration had just arrived and was making some favorable changes and overtures to us. Some of you may recall, and I didn't need to, but I stuck my neck out and wrote a letter to all the drivers simply asking them to give this administration a chance. Trust but verify was one of my letter was accepted with a mostly favorable response. I can assure you I spoke several of my fellow drivers off the cliff. If I were to try to explain to your bus drivers, we will be all right removing Jenna Bowers from our ranks, I'd be laughed out of the building. Losing all credibility. You see, I can't help you fix this one, but you can. And I'm just going to real quick here. No one else, I'm going to talk about myself, which is not very easy. No one else in this building or district, for that matter, has a better understanding of the history of the operations of our transportation department. I have seen this as a student, a parent, the senior most driver, and now as the bearer of words of wisdom. Therefore, for the good of my transportation department and well-being to the Yakima School District, please reinstate Jenna Bowers and the critical position she holds as our routing and trip supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your many years of service to our kids. Next up, we have one more comment from Vicki Dwight regarding budget. Former YEA president, former teacher in Yakima.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it. As he said, I'm Vicki Dwight, former president, 2004, 2012, retired after 39 years, spent 8 years as the president. And I'm here again as an advocate for my colleagues. And also, I would hope for the district. Mr. Murrieta, thank you very much for your response to the young man that came up here. I think that's, every time, this is a great opportunity to let the public know that you're being responsive to concerns. And no, you're not going to be able to solve everything here, but it was just a nice, very respectful response, and I appreciate that. I'm disappointed that I feel that the district continues to double down on our budget gamble, as the Herald Republic described it. Again, state funding has been, since I was in high school, my mom was a teacher, state funding has always been there, but yet we've only riffed one other time that I remember in this district back in the 90s, and that was because of a double levy failure. I haven't heard from anybody, this is what we're going to do so this doesn't happen again. We realized that there were some maybe missteps or what happened. And I don't think that we need most of it would go over my head, so I don't think we need a lot of detail. But what happened? What assurances do we have from Mrs. Maldonado, who spoke here at the last meeting that said, I'm never going to vote for another levy. My friends and I aren't going to go out and advertise for it. So what assurances can we give the community to make sure that we have a successful levy next time? Every day in this district, every day, everything that everybody does here that you do, it's an advertisement for or against the levy. And I just think we always have to be very cognizant of that. And I think we've learned that in a hard way back in the day. Sound old, don't I? So yes, and one more thing, I would also think about how we're using policy governance. I sometimes think because of the protocol that goes along with that, kind of makes it kind of a sterile environment. where we don't get the responses a little bit more often. Again, knowing that we can't solve everything, but hearing a little bit more from the board that you've acknowledged it. I know you all. I know you're acknowledging it. You're acknowledging it here, but I think we need to be a little bit more vocal so that the community knows that we're all kind of in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have finally arrived at the end of the comment section, I do believe. So we now will, we need 30 minutes for executive session for the purpose of potential litigation. Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break to make your way to the professional library. Okay. Executive session has been terminated. Meeting is adjourned.